Hello guys, in this lecture I'm going to take you through step by step for you to become a website developer. But before we get right into the coding aspect, we need to understand one or two terms that will help simplify things for us. First of all, we need to take a look at who a website designer is and who a website developer is. Basically, a website designer is someone who give you the design outlook, or should I say, how the website will look like before it's being coded. So, and basically, they use Figma and also Adobe SD and also Photoshop. But currently, we normally use Figma for the design. So basically, someone who designed the website or someone who designed the outlook of a website is normally used as a front-end developer or a UX designer. And also we have the website developer. The website developer is basically a person or someone who convert the design into what? Code. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that website designer and website developer work hand in hand, because the website designer makes the design or the prototype of a website, and the developer basically convert the prototype or the look of the website into code. So the next step that we need to take a look at is the website developer. The website developer, we have the front-end developer and we have the back-end developer. For this course, we are going to focus mainly on the front-end developer. So with regard to the front-end developer, there are some languages that you need to understand or you need to learn for you to become a front-end developer. And some of the languages are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let's go through them one by one to get a detailed understanding of what each and every language entails. First of all, the HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is basically the framework of a website, or should I say, the building block of a website. And secondly, we have CSS. CSS is basically the styling of a website, like adding text and also styling and giving color to a website. And we have the JavaScript. The JavaScript is basically the functionalities of a website. So for us to get the understanding really well, HTML basically is the body of the website, and CSS basically gives us the colors and the beauty of the website, and JavaScript basically give us the interaction or the action or the function of the website. And in terms of website designing, we need to consider tags. Tags is basically what help us to structure or that help us in terms of website design. First of all, we have the HTML tag, and basically the HTML tag basically looks like this. So it starts with a less than and greater than, and in between the less than or greater than, you type HTML. And this is basically the HTML tag. First of all, looking at this tag on the screen being displayed, that's the opening tag of HTML. And anytime you are dealing with tags in HTML, we have an opening tag and a closing tag. So this is basically the opening tag of HTML. And moving on, at the bottom right hand side, you could see the closing tag of HTML. So basically the closing tag will be less than or greater than. Then in between the less than or greater than, you end it with /HTML. So basically this is the closing tag of HTML. So with regards to this, we will head into our browser and download the Visual Studio code which we'll be using for this course. When we open our Chrome browser, we just have to type Visual Studio code. Now let's press enter. So when you type Visual Studio in your browser, you could see this being displayed on your screen. So this is the logo, or should I say this is the Visual Studio icon. So let's click on the download. link. So it will open this for us to download our operating system. So we have operating system for Windows and also Mac for the Mac people. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm using Windows. So I'm going to download the Windows version. So we just click on this download button. Then it will download the setup for us. And afterwards, we'll just install it. So see you in the Visual Studio. Hello guys, when you open Visual Studio for the first time, this is what you see. So in this tutorial, we are going to start our first web page, which will help us display hello world on our browser. So for us to start, first of all, we need to create a file. So let's move it to file and click on new file. This is what you see. So as I said earlier on, in HTML, we deal with tag. We need to implement the opening tag and also the closing tag. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you just type HTML. Then this is the opening tag of HTML. Let me zoom it for you to see it better. This is the opening tag of HTML. So now we need to close it up. So you come to the next line and less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, you just type slash, that's backslash, then you type HTML. That's basically the closing tag for HTML. So this is the closing tag of HTML and this is the closing tag of HTML. And in between the opening tag and closing tag of HTML, there are two tags that you need to take into consideration: the header tag and the body tag. So let's implement those two tags and I'll explain in detail for you to understand it better. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you just type head. This is the opening tag of header. So now we need to close it up. So you move to the next line, less than or greater than, then slash, then head. So basically, this is the opening tag of the header tag and this is the closing tag of the header tag. Now let's implement our next tag, which is the body tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type body. That's the opening tag of the body. So now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type slash, then body. So basically, this is the opening tag of the body and this is the closing tag of the body. And all these two tags are being enclosed in the HTML tag. So basically, this is how our website structure is basically going to be. So now let's move to each tag and let me explain in detail for you to understand. With this header tag, for the sake of this tutorial, we'll hold on with this header tag. But basically, we'll move to the body tag. The body tag is basically what will be displayed on our web page, or should I say on our web browser. So now let's just type hello world. Now we need to save our file. So for us to save our file, we click on, for us to save our file, let me zoom it a little bit so that you could see it better. So okay, so basically for us to save our file, you need to click on file, then you go to save as. When you go to save as, I'm going to create a folder in this folder directory. So let me just name it website. Okay, now double click to open it up. You can save it on your desktop, but just for consideration sake or for organization sake or for organizing file, you need to just create a folder and put all the file inside. So I created mine as website, so you can also create the name that you prefer. Now let's give our file a name. So let's give our file a name. So let's give it index.html. Please pay attention. With regard to HTML or with regard to our browser normally understands some extension. So after giving your file a name, you just need to add the HTML tag to it. Then after that, click on save. Okay, so now let's move to our browser. Let's head to our browser. Okay, let's open our folder. Our folder desktop. Oh yeah, desktop tutorial. Desktop. Yeah, tutorial. Okay, then we'll move to our folder, which was website. Now you could see our file being named index like this. Double click on it. We could see that hello world have been displayed on the screen. So basically that's how you can display a text on a browser. So that's basically it. Relate off here. In this tutorial, I'm basically going to introduce you to another new tag, which is the header tag. So someone might say, we already have head here. So that's what basically you mean, but that's not what basically I mean. You could remember I told you that whatever you want to be displayed on the screen must be typed in the body tag. So in this tutorial, we are going to implement the header tag for it to be displayed on what our browser. So we'll come in between the body tag. Since in between the body tag, that will help us display text on the screen. So we just type less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, the tag is h. So h1. That's the opening tag for the header tag. That's the opening tag for the header. So basically we are saying header 1. Now we need to close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then header 1. So this is basically the header tag. In between the header tag, you need to type a text which will be displayed on the screen. So let me just type, this is the header tag. Now let's click on file. Now let's save it. Now let's move to our browser. Now let's refresh our browser. You could see that our tag is being displayed. This is the header tag. So basically this is what refers to as the head tag. We have different type of header. So now let me implement another header tag for you to understand it better. We have header 1, so we need to implement another header tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, we can implement h, then we type 2. Then this is the opening tag for the header 2, and now let's close it up, less than or greater than slash header 2. So basically this is the opening tag of header 2, and this is the closing tag of header 2. And in between the opening tag and closing tag of header 2, let's type, this is header 2. Now let's save it. Now let's move to our browser. Now let's refresh it and see what happened. You could see that our header 1 is basically bigger than our header 2. So that should tell you that in terms of header, we have header in different categories. So we have header 1, we have header 2, yeah, we have header 3, and up to header 6. So basically for us to get to the last header, let me just do it this way. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, when you just type h, you could see that they have listed the header down for you. Header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, header 5, header 6. So now let's implement header 6 for us to understand it better. So okay, h6, then we need to close it up. So h slash h6. So in between, let's give it this. This is header 6. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh it and see. You could see that our header 1 is bigger than header 2, and header 2 is bigger than header 2. So that should tell you that as the number keep on increasing in terms of the header, the font size end up decreasing. Hello guys, we are going to talk about paragraph. So let's implement our paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type P. Then that's basically the opening tag of the paragraph. Now let's come to the next line, less than or greater than, then /P to close our paragraph. So in between the opening tag and closing tag of the paragraph, let's type this is a paragraph. Okay. Now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our paragraph is being what is being displayed. So I'm going to add a header tag to the paragraph to distinguish between a header tag and a paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, type H. Let's give it a header tag of H6. Then let's scroll it up. Less than or greater than, then /H6. Then let's give it, this is a header. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh and see. You could see that our header tag is being displayed here and our paragraph tag is being displayed here. And the distinguish between the header and the paragraph, you could see a huge difference because the header tag is kind of deepening whilst the paragraph is not kind of bold. So indirectly, that should tell you that with the header tag, no matter how small it is, it's being bold in terms of text. But with the paragraph, it's normally there is no boldness attached to it. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about line break. In this text editor, or should I say code editor, no matter how long your text is, it's not going to break down until it's reached the end of the website or the web browser page length before it can display it to the next line. So without further ado, let's jump right into it for you to get the understanding. So less than or greater than, we are going to implement a paragraph for you to get it clearly. So let's implement the paragraph, which is P. Then let's close it up, less than or greater than /P. And in between the paragraph, since we want to get the understanding, I'll copy a text and display it here. So this is basically my text. Now let me paste it here. Now see what happened. You could see that our text starts here and ends here So basically that's really a long text. Now let's save it. Now open our browser and see how it's being displayed. You could see that our text is being displayed this way, but you could see that it's moved to the next line. So let's just assume you do not want, let's just assume where it starts with this double quotation mark AI, we want it to be moved to the next line. So since we want it to be moved to the next line, when you come here, so that's here, so we said 2, so where the AI begins, want it to move it to the next line. So let's press enter. You could see that the line have moved to the next line. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh. You could see that still our text is being displayed the way it's being displayed. Or let's make it this way. So let's go back and align the text. Let's assume we want, after it looks like you might be referring to. So let's just break this line here. So might be between B and referring. So let's now come to the next line. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now refresh. You could see that nothing happened. So since nothing happened, that's basically when line breaks come into being, because it's like no matter how you give or you move the sentence to the next line and even save it and still open the browser and refresh it, so nothing happens. So with that, we need to implement another tag. That's what we normally refer to as line breaks. So let's assume in here we want to break the line so that this sentence, which is being displayed this way, when it reaches here, it brings this to the next line. So in between where we need to implement the break line, so we just type less than or greater than, then BR, then slash. So basically this is the break line. So, and this is a self-closing tag. We don't have anything like opening and a close tag. So just type less than or greater than, then BR, then that forward slash, then that's basically it. So like this, less than or greater than, then BR, then slash. So now let's save it. Now let's head to our browser. Now let's refresh, and you see that our line or our sentences have been broken into two. So you could see that the referring have moved to the next line. So let's assume we want to implement another line break between code and stand. So we just move to our browser again, code stand, now less than or greater than, then in between the less than, BR, then slash. Now let's save it. Now let's head to our browser. Now see what happens when we refresh it. When we refresh it, you can see that I've moved to the next line. Hello guys. We are going to talk about link. Link is basically something or a tag that helps you to navigate to a different page or a different website. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So less than or greater than. The tag for link is A. So just the alphabet A. That's the opening tag for link. Then the closing tag is less than or greater than, then slash, then A. Now whatever you want to be displayed on the screen is what will be typed in between the closing tag and opening tag of the link tag. So now let's type this is a link. Now let's save it and now head to our browser. Now let's refresh our browser. You could see that this text is being displayed as a normal text, but with regards to links, we need to implement an attribute that will make this text a link. So you come to the opening tag of the link, then now give a space, then now type h, then ref, href, then equal to, then double curly braces, then double quotations. And in between the double quotation, where you want the user to navigate to or where you want the user to go to, that's where you type where you want the user to go to. If let's assume you want the user to go to a different page, you just type the name of the different page. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to create another HTML tag that will help us move from one page to another. So now let's go to file, create a new file, then let's copy the whole of this. Now copy, Ctrl C, then you come here, then paste it. Now let's save this file. So save as, then let's give it a name of index2, then .html. Now let's click on enter. Now let's change this to page, then we type page 2. Okay, now let's save it. But now after saying, let's move to our first index. Now we want we want this link to navigate to this page whenever a user click on this is a link. So now let's type index.html. a index2 dot html, index2 dot html. So we are basically telling the user, anytime the user opens the browser, he will see this, and anytime he clicks on this, it will move him to page 2. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser, and now when you refresh it, you could see that now our text has changed. You could see that it has turned into blue with an underlying text. That should tell you that it's a link. But when you put your mouse on the text, you could see that it has turned into a hand. So that's basically telling you that it is a link. So when you just click it, now see what happened. You could see that it will navigate you to page 2, where we typed page 2. So basically, so in case we are in page 2 and we want to move back to the page 1, we just come here and implement that index. We just have to reference the name of the file. That's index.html. Now let's save. Now open our browser. You could see that in page 2, when we refresh it, now you could see that when we put our cursor on the text, you could see that it has indicated that we are in page 2. That's basically here. So when we click on this link, it will move us back to page 1. So you could see that it has bring us back to this our page, which earlier on said this is a link. But there is something that you need to take into consideration in terms of link. You should always make sure that the files are being saved on the same place. So let's open our folder and see. You could see that in our folder, you could see that our index 1 or our index and index 2 are being saved on the same page. So basically, when it's being saved on the same page and you reference it this way, it will work perfectly. But should in case it's being saved on a different folder, you need to reference the path to that specific folder in which your page is being allocated. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about input, and we have different kind of input because in terms of collecting data from our customers, we can collect the customer's username and his age and all sorts of stuff. So in this lecture, I'm going to basically talk to you through the basic of input collection, which is collecting the user's name. So let's implement the tag for our information collection. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type input. Since I said earlier on, we have an opening and closing tag, but this kind of input is a self-closing tag, so you just close it up by the slash. So now we need to specify the type of input that we are going to take from the person. So we just type, then we give it equal to the double sign. Then in between the double quotation, you just type the type of input or the type of information we'll be taking from the customer. So we just type text, since we are going to take text from the client. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh. You could see that this giant box is being opened, and when you click on it, you could see that and you start typing, you could see that a text is being displayed. It's because we specified that we are taking an input, and that input type is supposed to be text. So that's basically it for taking input information in the form of text from client. Hello guys, earlier on I already introduced you to an input field which helps you collect user name. So in this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to another kind of tag that will help you collect user's password for authentication or login, because in terms of user collection of data, there will be a form that will, or there will be a place that you need to enter your password, and using the input field with the type of text will definitely show your this thing, your password to everyone. So we use another tag within the input tag to make our password in the form of dot or in the form of hashtag. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type input and you close it up. Since input is a self-closing tag, then afterward you need to implement the input type. So you just type, then each to then double quotation mark, then in between it, the double quotation mark, you just type password. So basically you are trying to tell the browser that you need an input field, but with that input field it should be in the form of password. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh and see. You could see that it's the same as the text box, but the moment you click here and start typing, you could see that the text is in the form of dot. So basically this is what you normally see on a web browser when typing your password. So that's basically it. Hello guys, I'm going to introduce you to another type of input that you can take from customers, which is the checker box. So let's get right into it. So less than or greater than, the checker box. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, we just type input, then we'll close it up since it's a self-closing tag. Now let's implement the type of input that we need to collect from our customers. So we just type, then equal to, then double quotation, then in between the double quotation we just type checker, then box. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh it. You could see that this small dialog box or this small square is being displayed on it, and when we move our mouse cursor at the center of it and click on it, you could see that it's being ticked or it's being marked. So basically this is an input in the form of what a checker box as is being displayed here. It's an input but in the form of what? A checker box. Earlier on we left off by taking input from our customers, which is in the form of text. I'm going to implement another new type of input that we can also take from our client. So let's implement, so less than or greater than, then we type input, then slash for closing up. So now we need to specify a type that we are taking. So we just type. With this one, we are not going to take a text kind of input, but we are going to take a tick, more or less a check kind of input. So you just type equals to, then you type check box. So basically you are saying it should display an input, and that input should be in the form or should be a type of checkbox. So now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that there is a checker here. So when we put our mouse cursor on it, now for the sake of this, let's implement a line break here. That will help us understand it better. So less than or greater than, then be out, then slash. Basically here we are saying that after our text input, we need to break a line. We need to break this line and move to the next page. So now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that there is another dialog box which is small, and anytime we send our mouse cursor there, we just click on it, it marks it. So that's basically a checker box, and this is the normal text type that we're talking about. Hello guys, in this lecture I'm going to introduce you to another type of input that we normally see on our web browser, which is the radar kind of input. So let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type input, then slash, since it's a closing tag. Then now we need to implement the type of input that we want to receive. So we just type the equals to then double quotation. In between the double quotation, since we are collecting a different type of input, so which is the radii, so we just type RADIO, stand for radii. Then now we save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see what happened. You could see that this circle is being displayed. So basically this is the radii form of input that we have. So when you send our mouse pointer to the center of our input and click on it, you could see that there is a circle being drawn at the middle. So basically this is the radar type of input. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about a different type of input, which is the slider kind of input, because that's what I normally refer to as the slider. Because between when you are navigating through a website, you could see that there is a kind of slider that you need to draw up and down, or should I say left and right. So that's basically what we are going to implement in this tutorial. So less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, you type input, then we close it up. Then you specify the type of input that we are collecting. So type equal to the double curly braces. In between the double quotations, you just type range. Then now save the file. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our range is being displayed on our screen. So you can see how it's being displayed. And when you bring the cursor here and you hold and you are sliding, you could see that it moves. So that's what I normally refer to as the slider, or should I say the radii type of input. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about button that help us submit form and also do some logic in the web browser. So let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, we type button. So this is basically the opening tag of the button. That's basically it. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash the button. Now that's the closing tag for button. And in between the opening tag and closing tag of the button, let's just type what will be displayed. So let's just type this. This is a button. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our button is being implemented in our web browser. For now, when you click on it, you could see that it's bouncing. It's not doing anything at the moment. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about selecting items on a drop-down list. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So in terms of selecting or making us select an item in our web browser, we need to implement the select tag that will help our client or our user to select items from a drop-down list. So let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type select. So that's the opening tag of the select. Then let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then you type select. So, and this is the closing tag of the select. Now in between the opening and closing tag of the select, we need to implement the options in which the customer can select from. So less than or greater than, then the first item which will be displayed will be option, or should I say in between the less than and greater than of the selected item, we need to implement the options or the option which will be displayed. So we need to implement another tag which is the less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, we type option. Then that's the opening tag of the option. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash option. So the first option, let's name it James. Okay. Now let's implement the second option for the item to be selected. So less than or greater than, then type option, then that's the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So slash option, and in between the opening and closing tag of the option, let's type the second name should be mango. Okay, mango. Okay, let's implement another option again. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, we type option. Now let's close the option tag. So less than or greater than option, then we type apple. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh. You could see that this giant dialog box have been displayed, and it helps us to make an option selection. So you could see that our first option is James, which is this one. So that's why it's being displayed here in our browser as James. So the moment we click this down arrow, you could see that our option is being being displayed, and you can select the one that you want. So let me select mango. You could see that we selected mango, and we can click it again and even change it to apple. So you could see that anytime we click on this drop arrow, it helps us to make a selection, and that selection is the option being written here. So the first option was James, the second option was mango, the third option was apple. So should in case I want to add another option, so let's just add another option. So less than or greater than, you type option, then you come to the next line and close our option tag. So less than or greater than, then in between the less than option, then let's just say we will have to close it up. Now let's give it another option. So let's just iPhone. So we added an option of iPhone. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh. You could see that when you click on this arrow, you could see that our next option is being added, which is the Apple, which is the iPhone, and we can select it. So anytime we select an option, that option is being displayed here. So basically that's the options. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about lists. And lists, we have two types of lists, and one is the order list and the other one is the unordered list. So let's just jump right to it. You get to understand it better. We are going to first implement the order list, and later on we'll implement the unordered list. So with the order list, so we start with the less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, you type OL. So basically that's the order list, and that's the opening tag. Now we need to close it up. Less than or greater than, then slash OL. So basically this is the opening tag for the order list and the closing tag for the order list. And in between the opening tag and closing tag of the order list, we need to implement the list itself. So less than or greater than, then you type LI. So that's basically the opening tag of the list. Now we need to close it up, less than or greater than, then slash LI. Then in between it, you give it a name. So let's assume our number one should be, this is a number one. Okay, now let's save it. Okay, now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our list is being displayed as one, and this is the text that we give to it. So now let's implement number two so that you could see it working in the form that we expected. So now I will change this number one to a name. Let's just assuming the name should be James. Then number two, so you need to open and close, then LI. So this the number two. So less than or greater than, then slash LI. Then you type the number two. Let me just assume number one is James. Okay, then number two is books. So now let's save it and open our browser and refresh it. You could see that number one is James and number 2 is what? James. So that should basically tells you that anytime you want to add another item to this list, you just have to implement li and close it up with /li, then implement the name that we want to add. So let me just assume I want to add number 3. So less than or greater than, then li, then the next line, then less than or greater than, then slash, then slash li, then let me give it age. So now you could see that number 3 will be age. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh it, and you see that number 3 is what? Is age. So in terms of making an order list, first of all, you need to bring the opening tag and closing tag of the list, which is ol. This is the opening tag, and ol, this is the closing tag, which encompasses the number of items that you want to be, which is li. So li stands for list one, list, li list, and li. In this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to another type of list, which is the unordered list, or should I say the Boolean type of list. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type UL, stand for unordered list. So this is the opening tag for the unordered list. Now the closing tag for the unordered list. So less than or greater than, then slash UL. So in between the less than greater than of the unordered list, we need to implement our item, which is the boolean that we expected. So less than or greater than, then li, then that's the opening tag of the list item, then we close it up with less than or greater than slash li. So that's the closing tag. Now our first boolean would be, let's just name it James. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now refresh. You could see that our first boolean is James. So basically, that's what you need to take into consideration when making a boolean list in an HTML. So it should be UL, basically stand for unordered list. Then the item, which will be list item. So you just name it li. Now let's add another item or another boolean to the list. So less than or greater than, then li, list item, then that's the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash li, then in between the opening and closing tag of the boolean, we need to give it a name. Let's just name it age. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now when we refresh, you see that one item will be added to it. So refresh, you will see that another boolean have been added to it. So basically, in terms of implementing an order list, you need to make the unordered list, which is UL, the opening tag and the closing tag, which encompasses the number of list item that you want it to be. So, and the list item tag will be li and li. So that's basically it. So guys, earlier on I told you that anytime you want to display something on the screen, it should be typed within the body tag. But in this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to something that will help us in terms of coding, because when developing a website, you need to leave comment so that later on you can come to it and continue with your code, or later on if there is some trick that you need to do, or sometimes when you send the code to another developer, he will be able to understand whatever you are doing in this aspect of the code. And comments is really necessary in terms of what writing in HTML. So for us to implement comment is in the form of a text in the code editor, which will not be displayed in our web browser. So let's assume we want to implement comment. The only thing we just have to do is just type less than or greater than. So in between the less than or greater than, you type exclamation, then you give a double dash, you dash that, then another dash that. So when done, that is being done. So exclamation dash dash, then dash that, then the closing tag. and in between the double dash, so that's first and second dash, you type the comment that you want to implement over there. So let's just assuming I want to say that do something here, do something, something here, something here. Now when we save it and open our browser, now when we refresh it, you could see that nothing shows here. But when you open the code editor, you could see that it tells us that do something here. So that should tell us that with this kind of info, it will only be displayed in our code editor, but it won't be displayed in our in our web browser. So even if you add a paragraph, so let me add a paragraph to our tag. So p then closing paragraph, then type hello there. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh it. You could see that hello there is being displayed. But if you look at the code editor, you could see that hello there is here, and there is another text of info here which tells I do something here, with actually is a comment. So basically this is how to implement comment in website designing. More or less a text which will tell you what to do at a later part, or something that you need to do when coding, but will not be displayed on our web browser. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to talk about title, in the sense that I normally tell you that whatever is being typed in the body tag, that's what will be displayed in our screen. But let's open our browser and see something. You could see that on our browser here is being displayed as what? HTML dot, it's being displayed as index.html, and basically we want to give our we want to give a title to this file rather than the HTML dot rather than the index.html. So we move to our browser to give a title to our browser. This thing, we need to come to the header sector. In this sector, that's where you can give title to what our browser, because in terms of developing a website, we don't want to be seeing this index.html anytime someone type our, or someone tries to open our browser our website, because this is not professional. So we need to convert this into our company name, so that anytime someone visits our website, our company name will be displayed rather than this. So now let's head to the browser and move to in between the opening tag and the closing tag of header. We need to introduce a tag called title that will help us change that name over there. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type then title. That's the opening tag of the title. Now let's close it up. So move to the next line, less than or greater than, then slash, then title. Now let's give the title in between the opening tag of the title and the closing tag of the title. Let's give it a name. So let's just give it a name of James. Let's give it James Tech, as in James Technology. And now let's save it, and now let's open our browser and see something. You could see that here is index.html, but the moment we refresh it, you could see that our index.html has changed and has given us our company name, which is James Tech. So basically, to change the name here from index.html to our company name, we just introduce a title in the a title tag in the header tag, to us to change or display our name on our browser. In this lecture, we are going to talk about tables. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. We need to display item in the form of table. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you just type table. So basically this is the opening tag for table. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type slash then table. So that's the closing tag for the table. So in between the opening tag and closing tag of tables, you need to implement the rows or rows, because you know that table consists of rows and what and column. So let's implement our first row. So less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, the tag for the row is what TR. Then that's the opening tag for row. Now let's close this up. So less than or greater than, then slash TR. So basically this is the first row of our table. So in our first row of our table, we need to implement two items for our first row. So let me just say name, we need to implement name and also age. So and age. So to do that, we need to make our first row of our table to be a header. So a header, yeah. So we need to implement the header tag for the first row. So less than or greater than. So we type T8. That is basically refers to as header, or should I say that basically refers to as what, table header. Then that's the opening tag. Now let's close it up with the less than or greater than, then slash, then TH. So in between the opening tag and closing tag of the TH, you just type the face header tag of the table. So we just type, which is name. Okay, name. Now you need to implement our second header tag, which is the age. So less than or greater than, then we type T8, which is the table header. Then that's the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So slash, then T8. So in between the opening tag and the closing tag of the table header, we type age. So basically, we are saying in our first row, we need two items, which is in the form of header, which is TH, header of the first row, and also header of the first row. So basically, we are saying in our first row, we need two columns, and the first column is the name, and the second column is what, the age, and that column should be in the form of what, a header. Now let's implement our second row. So less than or greater than, so it TR for our second row, then we'll close it up, slash TR. So this is our second row in our table. Now in our second row, since in our first row we had two columns, so in our second row we need to implement two columns, but with this one it should be in the form of detail, not in the form of header, or it should be in the form of text but not in the form of header. So less than or greater than, then we type TD, which is refers to as table details, and that's the opening tag. So now let's implement the closing tag. So less than or greater than, then slash, then what, TB. And now in between the TB, we type, since our first row and our header is a name, so let's give it a name of James. Now in our second column, in our second row, so now T less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, we type TD. Now let's close our table detail. So less than or greater than, the slash TD. And in between our second row, in our second column, we should add an age. Since in our first row of our second column we had age, so our age number, let's just type 20. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our table is being displayed. You could see that our first row, which is what, our first row, which is name and age. So this is basically our first row in our table, and the second row, which is the main detail, which is age, which is name James, and the age is 20. And that's what is in our second row, with our detail to be James and number 20. So basically, in terms of table, or in terms of implementing tables, you need to take into consideration first whether the information is a detail, or the information is in the form of header. But before that, you need to take into consideration the number of rows that you want and also the number of columns that you want, because the first thing that you have to take into consideration is the first row, which is the TR. And this TR will give you the first row, and this second items in the TR is basically the column, and this T each stands for table header. And in our second row we had TD, and this TD is basically referring to as what? Table detail. So this is the table detail, this is the table detail. That's why we gave it a TD, and since refers to a detail, but when it comes to header we'll give it a tag of TA. So basically that's table. Hello guys, in this lecture we are basically going to put some tag that we have learned earlier on, like the input tag and also the checker box, and also a little bit of HTML tag that we have learned so far to create a form input for our user to be able to enter their name and also make a checker box whether they are male or what, a female. So basically we are going to create a form with the little knowledge that we have acquired so far. So without better ado, let's just jump right into it. So let's start with less than or greater than. In between the less than or greater than, we need to implement a tag, which is the input tag. So input and a self-closing tag. And now let's implement an attribute that we already know, which is the type of information or the type that we want, and that's type then equals to then double quotation. Then in between the double quotation we just type text, since we want to receive a text input. Now after receiving the text input, we need to specify a checker whether the person is a male or a female. So less than or greater than, then we type input, then it's a self-closing tag, then we close it up. Now let's type the type that we want, and the type is what? We want a checker for the client to be able to check. So we click or we type checker box. And this checker box, since we want male and female, we need to implement two. That will help the client to check whether he is a male or he is a female. So now let's implement another checker box. Then to input, then type, then type a checker box. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh. You could see that our item is being displayed but is on the same line. So with the sake of arrangement, or with the sake of visualization, or for the client to understand what is really going on, because as of now you could just see a huge dialog box and a double square. So we need to label our things really well for the client to know that this is meant for this and this is meant for that. So basically let's open our browser again, and this aspect is we want to collect the user info. So that's the user's name. So here let's implement another tag that will help us label this text. So, and that tag is known as label. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you just type label. That's the opening tag of the label. Now let's close it up. Now less than or greater than, then we type slash, then label. Now what do you want to label this first input? Now let's just say username. So user, the name. So then let's give it that double point. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser, and now let's refresh. You could see that on the same line our username is being assigned to this junk of items, but since this username is being assigned, we need to bring a line break that will distinguish the first input from the second, from the first input from the what? The second input. So now let's put a line break here. so that it will break between the text input and the word checkers. So less than or greater than BR, then slash. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh. You could see that then the username is being assigned to our input field here, and our checker box is being moved to the next line. So now let's label our checker box gender. So now this checker box, this is the first checker box, and this is the second checker box. So after the break line, now let's give it a label, then less than or greater than, then we type label, then that's the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then label, then in between we just give it a name of gender. So now let's save it and open our browser and see. You could see that our checker box, our two checker box are being given a label of gender. Now with this really displayed on our screen, the customer might get himself confused because it is true dialog box which doesn't have much to say. So why don't we label our first checker box male and our second checker box female? So now let's move to our browser. So now here, let's give our first checker box a label of male. So now let's label it, label again, then let's close the label to slash label, and in between it the first one will be male, and let's name, but before that let's move this male and female label here. Okay, label here. Then now let's create another label for the second checker. So less than or greater than, then label, then come to the next line, then less than or greater than, then label, then give it a name of what? Female. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our first checker is named label, and our first checker is named male, and our second checker is named female. But for the sake of arrangement, or for the sake of understanding, let's put a double sign here or double dot here. That will help us distinguish between the labels really well. So now let's put it there. Now let's save it, and now let's open our browser and refresh it. You will see that when the customer is filling a form and he gets here, he knows that here he has to type his username. So let's just assume the username is James24. Then now he'll be asked another question, which is gender. Is he a female or a what? Is he a male or a female? So let's assume the person is what? A male. So then he click on a male. You see that the male is being ticked. So basically, this is how a form is being created on HTML, or should I say website designing. At the latter part of this tutorial, we'll implement the functionalities behind, or the functionalities to help us post this information to, or make some calculation or manipulation around this forms that you can see on this website. Hello guys, in this lecture I'm going to show you how to display image on our web browser. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it and implement how to display image on our web browser. So basically we have a tag for image, so let's just get right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type MIG. That basically stands for images. Then since it's a self-closing tag, so we just bring the slash. Then after the img, we need to implement the source of the image. So in order for us to get the directory, we just type src, which basically represents the source, or should I say it's an attribute of an image to direct us to the specific image that we want to display. So we just type src, then equals to the double quotation. Then in between the double quotation, you type the image or the part of the image. But I've copied and paste an image in our directory, or should I say I've copied and pasted an image in our website folder. So let me rename this image to let me rename it to okay. So in this image, we want to display this image in our web browser. So the name is man, and but before we can type the name man, we need to know the extension of the image. So let's just right click on the image and select property. Now you could see that we have type of image, which is JPG. So that should tell us that our image extension is a JPEG. So now let's close it. Now let's move to our browser. Then just type the name of the file is what? Man. Okay, so we just type man here. Then what is the file extension? Is JPG. Then just type .jpg. Then now save our file. Now let's open our browser and now let's refresh and see. You could see that our image is being displayed, but since I zoom out, let me zoom out, you could see that our image is being displayed on our screen and it's a giant image. But we could resize the image to the extent that we can see it in a smaller size, but this one or resizing of image will be less for CSS. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about CSS. CSS is basically cascaded style sheet. As earlier on, I explained CSS to be something that help us implement colors and also help us position elements in what in terms of website developing. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. First of all, we need to cover one or two things in order for us to get the understanding of how CSS basically works. First of all, you need to understand how to select a specific element. Then secondly, you need to understand the property and also the value. So without further ado, let me just jump right into it and show you how it works. First of all, to select an element in coding or in CSS, you need to look out for the element name. So let's assume we want to select this body. So we basically come in between the header. First of all, we need to implement the style sheet tag. So for the style sheet tag, so less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you just type style. That's the opening tag of the style sheet. Now we need to close it up. So we come to the down, less than or greater than, then slash, then we will type style. So basically, this is the opening tag of the style sheet. This is the opening tag of the style sheet, and this is the closing tag of the style sheet. Now, in between the opening and closing tag of the style sheet, now let's select a specific element. So we want to select the body tag. So you just type body, then give a space, then double curly braces. Then in between the double curly braces, you need to implement two things. First of all, which is the property and also the value. So basically, the property and the value. So now, what do you want to do to the body? We want to give the body a color. So we specify we want to give the body a color. So now we just type, since if you give the body a color, since there is no text, it won't show. So let's give it the body a background color. So now the property name will be background. So we just type background. So background, then dash. So you are specifying the property which is you are specifying the property which is background color. So basically the property is background color, and double quotation, then quotation. So in between the double quotation and the quotation, you now specify the value. So now what value do you want to give it? We want to give the background color of red. So basically you just type the red. So basically this body specifically is telling us that we are selecting this tag, which is the body tag. Now this is the property. So basically this background color is what is a property, and we are assigning a value of red. So indirectly we are telling the browser to give us a property which is background color, and the value should be what? Should be red. So now let's save our file and now open our browser. You could see that currently our web browser is white. So now when we refresh it, you see that our entire website has turned into what is into red. So basically that's how we do styling in website designing. First of all, you need to identify the tag that you want to style. Then secondly, you need to open a property, or you need to specify the property that you want to change. Then lastly, you need to assign a value to it. So basically that's how CSS is. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to implement a paragraph, and after that we are going to change the font size of the paragraph. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type P for paragraph. This is the opening tag. Now let's close it up. Less than or greater than / P. In between the closing and opening tag of the paragraph, let's just type hello there. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh and see what happens. You could see that the text is being displayed. But for now, we need to increase the size of the font. So let's head into our code editor. Now, what do you want to increase? Which is the hello world, and it's a paragraph. So you head to the opening and closing tag of the style tag. Now you type P to select the paragraph, then double curly braces. In between the double curly braces, you need to specify the property that you need to change. Now we want to change the font size. So we just type the property is font dash size, then colon and semicolon, colon and semicolon. Now you need to specify the number. So you need to, let's assume you want the font size to be 24. So 24 pixels. Then you need to now save the file. Now we open our browser. Now see what happened. When we refresh it, you could see that our font has increased in size. If you could not notice it, now let's go to our code editor again. Now let's increase it to 54, so here you could see it better. So we now click on file and click on save. Now let's open our browser and refresh it. You could see that our fonts have drastically increased in size because of the increment of the font size. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to make our text bold. So with regards to that, we are going to use the paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type P. Then you come to the next line. Now let's close the paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, then /P. Then now let's display text on the screen. So we just type hello there. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. When you refresh, you can see that our text is being what? It's being displayed. Now we want to change the text for it to be bold. So let's open our code editor. Now let's select our the tag that we need to start, which is the P tag. So you just type P, then you introduce the double curly braces. Then in between the double curly braces, you input or you identify which of the property you need to change. So basically you need to change the font and make it bold. So you just type font dash style, then you colon and semicolon. Then you now specify the type that you want. You want to make your text bold. So you just type bold. Now you save it. Now open our browser and refresh. You could see that our text is bold. So with regards to making our text bold, we can also make our text italic. So let's head to our code editor again and specify another property. Let's assume we want this. Let's introduce a new tag. Now let's introduce a new P tag. Now let's introduce a new header tag. So H1, and then you come to the next line, then less than or greater than, you close it up, /H1. Then in between the H1, let's type a header. Okay, now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh. You could see that a header is being displayed. So now we want to make the text italic. Now you head to our style sheet, open an inclusive tag. Now specify the tag in which you want to apply property to it. So which is the header, which is h1. So you just type h1, then double curly braces. Then now you need to specify what you want the h1 thing to be, more or less the property of h1. So we want to apply, or we want to make it italic. So you just type font dash style, then colon and semicolon. Then since you want to make it italic, you just type italic. Now let's save our file, open our browser. Now see what happened when we refresh our browser. This I am a header. Let's see what happened. When you refresh it, you could see that our text has turned into italic. Hello guys, in this lecture we are going to implement another tag and style it. So let's start with the header tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than. So let's implement h1. So h1, that's the opening tag of our header. Now let's close it up. So slash h1. Now let's display hello world on the browser. So just type hello world. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. When we refresh, you will see that hello world have been displayed on our screen. Now let's open our code editor and style it a bit. Now we want our header tag to have a background color. So first of all, you need to select the tag in which you want to make changes to it, which is header 1. So you just type h1, then open double curly braces. Then when you open the double curly braces, now you need to specify the property that you want to change. So the property that we want to change the background color. So you just type background, then dash, then color. Now give it a double quotation mark. Then after you specify the color you want to give to the header 1. So we want the background color to be blue. Then we end up with a semicolon. Now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now refresh and see what happened. You could see that our background color for this text is what? Is blue. So now we can specify another property on top of this background that you can see here. Now let's say we want to add another property by changing the text in which is being displayed as black. We want to change this black text into white. So we'll open our code editor. Now specify another property. So for the sake of visualization, I'll move this background color to the next line, then this one to also to the next line. Now let's give a space here. So now another property that we need to specify is what? The color. We want to change this text to white. So the property name will be color. Then we'll give it a colon. Then we'll type the color that we want to give to the text, which is white. So now white. Then we'll now end it with a semicolon. Now let's save it. Let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our text is basically white now. So that should tell you that in terms of styling in CSS, all you need to know is how to select the element and also the property that you need to change. So you select the element and also you add the property, and you can add as many as you want property here for it to look exactly the way you want it to look on your website. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about padding, and padding is basically the space around a text. So for us to get the understanding really clearly, today we are not going to use our normal browser, which is the Chrome, or should I say the Microsoft Explorer, but we will be using Mozilla, or should I say we'll be using Chrome. We'll be using Chrome specifically for this tutorial because that will help us understand it really well. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So let's implement a paragraph tag, then select it, and after that apply the property to it. So let's implement the paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than, you type P. Then this is the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then P. Now let's type hello world to be displayed on the screen. So hello world. Now let's save it. Now let's open our folder or our directory in which our website is being saved or our index.html is being saved, and here is it. So with regards to this one, I'll be opening it with the Google Chrome. So let me just right click. Now go open with, now select the Google Chrome. So now you see that our hello world is being displayed. Now let me zoom it for you to see it better. Let me zoom it for you to see better. So that's basically it. Now earlier on I told you that with regard to padding is the space surrounding the text. So for us to apply padding to it, let's move to our code editor. Now let's move to our in between our opening and closing tag of the style. Now let's type the tag in which you want to start, which is paragraph. So we just type the P, open a double quotation. Now what's the property that we need to apply to this paragraph? And the property name is padding. So we just type padding, then colon and semicolon. In between the colon and semicolon, you need to apply a number. So basically we want to apply a padding of 20 pixels. So we just type 20, then you type 20, then PS. So basically in terms of padding, it should always be a number, then the dimension. So it's going to be 20 pixels. That's why I type 20. So now let's save it. Now let's open our Chrome browser. Now see what happened when we refresh. You could see that when we refresh, you could see our text being moved. So with regard to this, you won't see it better. But let's move to our browser and now apply a background, or should I say now apply a property to it so we can see it clearly. So now let's add a property to it. So let's add a background property for us to understand. So background color. Let's add a background dash color, a background color. Let's add colon and semicolon. In between the colon and semicolon, let's give it a property. Let's give it a value. So the value should be, let's give it a value of red. Now let's save it. Now let's open our Chrome. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our background color is what? Is red. But outside or in between the background, or should I say the edges of the background, should I say the edges between here and here, you could see that there is a large space around it. So basically we have added a padding around this text. So that should tell you that a padding is a space surrounding the text. So now let's see what happened when I remove the padding. Now let's delete padding, and now let's see. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh and see. You could see that our text is being close to our edges. So now let's move back. Now let's implement our padding and give it to the 20 pixels again. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and now refresh it. You could see that our text have jumped from edges to somewhere here. So basically, padding is the space that surround the text. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about margin. A margin is basically the space outside the text. So for you to get the understanding really well, let's implement it. So we are going to use the paragraph tag for this one. So less than or greater than P. This is the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash P. Now let's display a text which is hello there on the screen. So we type hello there. Then now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that hello there has been displayed on our screen. So now let's add the property of the margin. So now let's select the item that we need to add the property to, which is the paragraph. So P, double curly braces. Then now what do you want to add? Margin. So now margin, then double quotation. Then let's specify the margin, the amount of margin we need to add. Now let's specify 10, then which is 10 pixels, then we'll close it with a semicolon. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and see what happened when we refresh. You could see that our text have been jumped from here, from somewhere here to here. For us to get the clear understanding really well, let's add a background color to this paragraph. Now let's go background color dash color, then colon, then give it a color of red, then semicolon. Now let's save it and see what happened when we open our browser. Now let's see what happened. You could see that it have jumped from here to here. So basically what it's trying to tell us that the margin is the space outside of the bounding box of the background color. So that's the space around, not inside. So inside is basically for the padding and outside is basically for the margin. But for clarification's sake, I'm going to make you understand it clearer by using the tools the tools in this browser for you to get the understanding really well, because Google Chrome is basically a browser meant for developers. So for us to inspect it and understand it really clearly, now let's right click on the browser. Now let's move to inspect. When you go to inspect, you see that a dialog box is being opened here. Now let's drag this here and see it really clearly. So let's make our assumption that here is our text. In the middle here is our text, and around our text is the padding. Around our text is the padding, and outside of the padding we have the margin. So outside of our text we have what we call the margin. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about border. And border is basically the line around a text. For us to understand it better, we need to implement it. So I will start with the P paragraph. I will start with the paragraph. So less than or greater than, then P. That's the opening tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash P. Then now let's display a text hello there on the screen. Hello, okay, hello, okay, hello there. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that hello there is being displayed on our screen. Now let's go to our code editor. Now let's select our item that you need to make the changes to, which is our P. Then double curly braces. Now let's specify the property. Now the property that we need to change is what? A border. So we just type a border. Then in terms of border, we have to specify, we have different types of border that we need to take into consideration, because we have the border type, we need to have the border width, and also the border color. So with regards to border, we have three items, which is the border width, the border color, and also the style of the border. So for the sake of this tutorial, we are going to specify two items first, then later on, no, we are going to take that three items into consideration before you can visibly see the border. So first of all, you need to specify the border color. So we go with border dash color. So let's give our border a color of, so colon and semicolon, let's give our border a color of red. Then we need to specify the width of the border before we can see it visible. So we type border dash, then color, then colon, then semicolon, the colon, then semicolon. Now we need to specify, no, first we specify the color of the border. The second one should be the width, so border width. So border width. So basically we are specifying the thickness of the border. So we want to specify the thickness of the border, so we should make it 1 pixels, so 1 px. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. you could see that nothing happened. So we need to implement the third element, which is the style of the border. So you type border dash style, then colon and semicolon. Then we now need to type the style that we want. So we want it to be solid. So when we type solid, now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh this and see. You can see that there is a line around our text. So basically, in terms of style, in terms of border, there are three things that we need to take into consideration, which is the border color, the border width, and also the border style. So for us to get the understanding, we need to change one or two elements that will help us understand it well enough. So first of all, we need to increase the width of this line. So to increase the width of this line, we need to change the border width. So let me make it 5. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh and see. You can see that the line have increased in width. Now this, we need to change the color. So we head to our code editor. Now change this color to blue. So we are specifying the border color to be blue. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that our border is blue. And if you want our style of this border should be not solid but rather dot, so we just move to our code editor. Now change this solid to dotted. Now let's save it. Now let's open it up in our browser. Now let's refresh. You could see that our hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about border. Border is the line around a text. So for us to get it clearly, we need to implement it for you to get it clearly. So in this tutorial, we are going to deal with the paragraph, or we are going to implement a paragraph and also bring the border into existence for you to get it clearly. So less than or greater than. So P, then this is the opening tag. Let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then P. Now let's type hello world. Hello world. Now let's save it, and now let's open it in the Google Chrome. Now let's go open it, and let's open it in our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that hello world is being displayed. Now with regard to this, let's add the border and see how it shows up. So now let's select our paragraph and add a border. So P, then double quotation, then in between double quotation, let's just type border. So border, then colon and semicolon. Now let's give it a property border of 1 pixel. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see that nothing happened. We need to give the border a thickness and a color. And first of all, we specify the thickness of a border, which is 1. So we need to specify the other property, which is solid. Okay. Then we need to specify the last item, which is what? The color, which is red. So now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that there is a line around a text. Someone might get himself confused and ask himself what the heck is going on. Don't get yourself confused. Now let's open the code editor. We are trying to see the first one is the property, which is the border. Now we need to specify the thickness. So this one simply means the width of the border, and this one is totally telling us what the style of the border. In terms of styling of border, we have, for now, let's just stick to the solid. So we are trying to see that we need a thickness of 1 pixel, and we want it to be solid, and we want it to be a red color. So that's basically what you are telling this paragraph to be. So when you open it up, that's when you open up, you could see that there is a line thickness around the text. So we are saying the thickness is 1, and it is a solid, and it is also red in color. So that's basically a border in the last cell. So for the sake of this tutorial, I want to change the thickness. So when you go to the first one and type 2, now let's save it and open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our border have increased in width. So since it's 2, you can see it. Let's make it 5. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see that our line thickness is really high. So now for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to change the color of the border to blue. So now let's come to the color which is red, clear it up and type blue. Now let's save it and open our browser. And now let's refresh it. You could see that our color have changed into blue. Now let's take into consideration this solid that we are talking about. With regards to the styling of border, we have solid and we also have dot. So I'm just going to stick with these two for now. So we want our styling to be dot. So we just type dot. We just type dotted. So now we are saying our width should be 5 and our style should not be solid but rather a dotted, and it should be in the form of blue. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and see. You could see that it was line. Now let's refresh it. You could see that it's a blue color with a width of 5 but it's in the form of a dotted. So that should tell you that this is represented with the style that we want the width to be, and the first one is the width and the last one is the color. So first is the width, the second is the style, and lastly is the color. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about classes, and someone might ask what is classes in HTML. Basically, with regard to CSS, there are a lot of tag that goes into developing a website, but anytime we want to select a specific item, you use the tag name. So with classes, it helps us to specify the specific item that we want to change. For example, let's assume we have 2 tags, and with regards to the 2 tags, we want to perform different function to or add different property to some specific tag. So let's assume we have a paragraph, so less than or greater than p. That's the first tag. Now let's close the paragraph up. So /p. We have closed the paragraph up. Now let's give it a name. Let's just type p. Let's just type paragraph 1. Now let's implement another paragraph which is less than or greater than p. That's the opening tag of paragraph. Less than or greater than the /p. Then this one, let's give it a name of paragraph 2. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and refresh it. You could see that our paragraph 1 is being displayed and our paragraph 2 is being displayed. So now let's assume we want to assign a different item to this paragraph and also a different property to this paragraph. So with regards to that, anytime you come here and you see all of the tags are being specified as paragraph, there should be a way for you to select a specific paragraph. That's where classes comes in. So for you to assign specific classes in order to make different changes to different tag with the same name, so all you have to do is come to the opening tag of the paragraph that you want to change. Now give a space. Now you type class. Now after typing class, you type equal to the double quotation. In between the double quotation, you need to give it a name. So let me just give it a name of page. So we are saying that with regards to this paragraph, we have given it a class name of what? Page. So Now, when you want to make changes to paragraph 1, paragraph 1 and leave paragraph 2, you don't have to type P again, but rather you have to type the class name. So in order for you to access this class name, you move to the style, then you now type dot and type the, after typing the dot, then after the dot, you now type the class name, which is page. Then you now open your double curly braces. Then what property do you want to assign to paragraph 1? So let's assume we want to give paragraph 1 a background color of red. So we just type background color, background dash color, then colon and semicolon, then give it red. Now, when you save it, now let's open our browser. You can see that when you refresh, you can see that our first paragraph is being highlighted in red, whilst our paragraph 2 has no background assigned to it. So basically, with regard to classes basically help us to assign specific tags. So now let's assume we want to add another property to this paragraph 2. All you just have to do is, let's move to our code editor. All you just have to do is go to the opening tag of the paragraph and type class and give it a name. So let's type class, then equals what name is equals to then double quotation. Now what name do you want to give it? Let's give it page 2. Now page 2. Now in order for us to change this specific paragraph, you come to the class. Now you specify the name of the class by starting with a dot. So dot specify the class, then the name of the class should be page 2. Now double curly braces. Now you need to give it a property. Now we wanted it to be a background of blue, so you just type background dash color, okay, colon and semicolon, then type blue. Now when we save it, now let's open our browser and refresh. You could see that our paragraph 2 is being highlighted in red, whilst our paragraph 1 is being highlighted in red. So basically, in terms of selecting specific tags in CSS, we use classes that will help us to in terms of that will basically help us in selecting a specific class in our body. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about text alignment, but for us to understand it really carefully, I'm going to introduce the div tag, and in between the div tag I will introduce a paragraph tag for us to get the understanding really well. So let's jump right into it. Less than or greater than, in between the less than or greater than you type div. This is the opening tag. Now let's close this up. Less than or greater than, then slash, then div. Now in between the div tag I have to introduce the paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, then p. Then let's close it up. Less than or greater than, then slash p. Then let's type hello there. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that hello there is being displayed. So with that said, now we are going to select the div tag here in the style sheet. Now let's move to the style, the opening and closing tag of the style. Now let's type the tag that we have to change, which is div, then double quotation. Then in between it, we want to give the div tag a background color of red. So background color, semicolon and colon, then type red. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser and let's refresh it and see. You could see that our text is being displayed. So with regards to this, I'm going to select our P paragraph and do text alignment to it so that you could see what I'm talking about. So now let's open our P paragraph. Now let's select our P paragraph. So we'll call P double quotation, double curly braces. Then in between the double curly braces, you just type text align. You just type text dash align. Now this and colon and semicolon. This will help us align text either to the right, to the left, or to the center. Now we want to align text to the center. Now let's type center. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our text have moved from here to here. So that should tell you basically that in CSS we can do text alignment in what? In our CSS. And now let's make another text alignment. Let's make text alignment to the right. So let's type right. Now let's save it. Now let's see. After saving it, now if you open our browser, the moment we just refresh here, you will see that our text will move to the right side. Now refresh, you could see that our text is being moved here. So that should tell you that with regards to the text alignment, the default text alignment was on the left. So the default text alignment was on the left. So if you want to align it to the center, so you basically just type text align, then colon and semicolon, then change whether you want it to be center or you want it to be right. So that's basically text alignment. Hello guys, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to position item on the web page. So basically we are going to talk about position, but with regards to that I'm going to create a cube, and after that you use the cube to help us position element on the web browser. So first of all, I'll implement the div tag, which will help us to create the cube. And the div tag is basically a tag that helps us, or should I say an empty container tag which has no boundaries. So let's create the div tag. So let's now greater than, then you type div. This is the opening tag of the div. Now let's close it up. Let's now greater than, then slash div. Now you won't type anything in between the div tag. Now let's select the div tag in our style sheet so as to perform some, or so as we can add some property to it. So we need to select the div tag. So you just type div, then double quotation. In between the double quotation, now we need to create a square. So we need to, in order for us to create a square, we need to specify the width and height. So we specify width, then colon and semicolon, width of 20 pixels. Since it's a square, we need to specify the height, colon and semicolon, and we specify a height of 20 pixels, which means we are having a square now because width of 20 and a height of 20. When we leave our code here and save it and move to our browser, you could see, and move to our browser and refresh it, you could see that nothing should, because for an item or for something should be shown, since it have drawn the square, but since you have not given it a background color, you won't be able to see it well. So let's give it a background color, colon and semicolon, background color of red. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh, see what happened. You could see that our cube is being drawn. So as of our cube has been drawn, now let's position element in what? Our CSS. First of all, you need to understand that in CSS, the position element already have a property, or should I say the property of position already have a value assigned to it. So basically what I'm trying to say is that anytime you type position, you already have colon and semicolon. You already have a specific value assigned to it, which is static. So for the, without even specifying the value for the property of position, it have already assigned a static value to it. But with this tutorial, we are not going to talk about the static. We are not going to talk about the static, because with regards to the static, there is not much that you can do about it. but rather we are going to talk about relative. So we change the property of position to relative. And relative basically help us to align item or move item around. So basically, after implementing the position, now you need to say whether you want the item to shift from left, or the item should shift from right, or it should shift from top, or it should shift from down. So with regard to this one, I want the item to shift from left. So you just type left, then colon and semicolon. Then how many pixels do you want it to shift from the left? So let me specify 40 pixels. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now see where the square is. Now let's refresh our browser and see what happened. You could see that our square have moved from here to here. So basically it's trying to say that we have applied a relative position with regard to left of 20, or should I say we have applied a, a space between the cube bounding box and the edge of the website, or should I say we are just applying 40 pixels from the left. So we are saying it to move from the left to 40 pixels. Second, we can also assign a top margin to it, or should I say we can also assign top to it. So you can just type top colon and semicolon. Now we want to move the item from top to down a little bit. So let's move the item at top to 50 pixels. So now let's save it and open our browser. Now let's refresh and see. You could see that our box have now moved from top to 50 downward. So basically we are trying to say that with regard to positioning, without including relative and just leaving it blank, it won't work. So let me just delete this position element from here. Now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now when we refresh it, you could see that our bounding box have gone back to where it was at first. So basically, in order for you to move things around in a web browser, you need to add the property which is position, and you need to note the value for it. So position, which is supposed to relative. So with position relative, that will help you to move things around. So with assigning top, left, center, and bottom, without including the relative position, it won't work. So basically, with regard to positioning, you need to take into consideration anytime you specify at which point does it need to move, whether left, right, or top, you need to specify the position to be relative. So that's basically it. Hello guys, in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you another method in which you can use to select a specific tag in CSS, which is normally known as what? The ID. Because anytime you come across a developer website, some of them use the classes and some of them also use the ID. So in this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to the ID method of selecting a specific tag. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So let's use the paragraph. So less than or greater than, then give it a paragraph tag which is P. Now let's close it up. Less than or greater than, then slash, then P. Now in between, let's give it a name of paragraph. Let's just give it page 1. Page 1. Now, in order for us to understand it clearly, let's implement another paragraph. So less than or greater than, then P opening tag, then less than or greater than, then slash P to close it up. Now let's give it a name of that's page 2. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see that our page 1 is the paragraph 1 and our page 2 is the paragraph 2. Now we want to select paragraph 2 and give it a property. So we are going to assign the ID to the page 2 tag, which is the paragraph. So you just type ID equals to, then double quotation, then give it a name. So let's give it a name of P2. Now let's go in between the style sheet in order for us to style the specific ID. So in order for us to call this ID, we need to type the hash, then now type the name of the ID, so P2, then double curly braces. Now let's specify the property by giving it a background color of red. So just type background color, background dash color, colon and semicolon, and type red. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's see what happened when we refresh our browser. You will see that our H2, you will see that our paragraph 2 will change. So now let's refresh. You could see that our paragraph 2 has a box with a red background. So basically, we are saying that we want the paragraph, which is paragraph 2, to change its background color to what? Red. So basically, there are two ways of assigning item, or there are two ways of assigning things in order for us to call it in our CSS, rather than just using the normal p tag and h tag and the image tag and the rest. So basically, we have the class method of assigning item, or the ID method of assigning item, in order for us to call it in the CSS. So basically, that's the way we go about it. Hello guys, in this tutorial we are going to talk about justify content. So with regards to this, I'm going to create a div tag which encompasses 3 cube. Then after that, we'll use text, or we'll use justify content to align items on our web browser. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So less than or greater than, then in between the less than or greater than, we introduce the div tag. Now let's close it up. So less than or greater than, then slash, then div. Now in between the div tag, I told you earlier on, we are going to introduce 3 cube. That will help us understand how justify content work. So with regards to this, I'm going to assign a class name to our div here. So you type class, you give it a space, class equals to the double quotation. Now let's give it a name. So let's name it main. Now in between the div tag, we create another div. So div tag again, less than or greater than, then slash div. This is going to be our second cube. This is going to be our first cube. So you just give it a class name. So class is equal to double quotation, then give it, let's give it a name of cube. Okay, let's give it a name of cube 1. Then let's create cube 2. So less than or greater than, then div, then less than or greater than, then slash, then div, then give it a class name, or class is equal to double curly braces, then name it cube 2. Then lastly, let's create cube 3. So less than or greater than, div, and less than or greater than, then slash, then div. Then now let's name class is equal to cube 3. Okay, so as you can see here, I've created 3 div, which is 1, 2, 3, and I've encompassed it with this. But with regard to the div that I created earlier on, you could see that I have given each div a name. So the first div is cube, the first the one which encompasses all the three div name is main, and the first cube is cube 1, and the second cube is cube 2, and the third cube is cube 3. So with regards to that, let's move to our style sheet and call our classes. First of all, we want to call our cube, our class, our first class, which is cube 1. So we just type dot, then type cube, then 1, then double curly braces. Then now we'll give it a height and width. So let's give it a width of 20 pixels. Then a height of, okay, since it's a cube, let's give it height. Okay, let's give it a height, colon and semicolon, a height of also 20 pixels. Now, since cube 1, cube 2, and cube 3 are the same in size, we could just duplicate this 3 times. We could just copy and paste this 3 times and change the dot cube 1 to cube 2. But with regard to CSS, or in terms of coding, there is no need for you to duplicate code. So the only thing that you need to do is you have to do multiple selection. So all you just have to do is just give a space, then you call the next item or the next class that you want to call also. But with regard to this tutorial, I'm not going to do that because I want each and every cube to have a different color. So I give cube 1 a background color of red. So background dash color, ground dash color, colon and semicolon. Give it a background color of red. Now let's call the cube 2. So dot cube 2, then double quotation. Since it's going to be a square, so width, colon and semicolon, colon and semicolon, width, semicolon, width of 20 pixels. Now let's give it a height of, so colon and semicolon, a height of 20 pixels as well. But with regards to the second cube, I'm going to make it background color of background dash color, colon and semicolon, background color, colon and semicolon. In between, you just give it a background color of yellow. Okay, yellow. Now let's create our third cube, which is dot cube, okay, cube 3, double quotation, then you give it a width of 20 pixels, a height, a height, colon semicolon, a height of 20 pixels. But this one, let's give it a background color of a background color, colon, okay, background color of blue. So now let me zoom out a little bit for you to see it better. So you could see that with regards to our code, you could see that we created a big div, or should I say a div which encompasses 3 div with different class names, and we reference each and every class name here, which this one is for the first div, which has a class name of cube 1, and the cube 2 is referred to this cube 2 here, and the cube 3 is referring to the last div here. So basically, let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh. Cube is now aligned vertically, but now we want to align it horizontally, so as you can understand justify content really well. So now let's move to our code editor and now call a property that we normally known as display. So you call the display property and refer to as flex. So basically, what this is doing, this display flex is doing, is basically saying that pick this cube and display it on a straight line. So basically, we are saying display flex, which means instead of the item displaying this way, it should be displayed on what? On the horizontal axis instead of the vertical axis. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Let's refresh it. You can see that it has been displayed on what? On the horizontal axis. Now let's implement the justify content. All you just have to do is just have to come to down and type justify dash content. Okay, justify content, colon and semicolon, justify content. First of all, what we want to do here is we want to move all this item to the right side of our screen. So what we will have to do is just have to do justify content and give it a justify content of flex end. So you just have to give it a justify content flex end. Now let's save it and see what happens. When we open our browser, the moment we refresh our browser, you could see that this whole red, yellow, blue cube will be moved to the right side. You just see, you have seen that it have moved to the right side. That's justify content. And justify content in terms of what? Justifying it in terms of flex end. So what we are saying is just let the item be displayed on the what? On the horizontal axis, but it should be at the end of the what? Of the browser. So as we can also change from flex end to flex start, which is the default item that we saw earlier on. So let's just implement, okay, flex start. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh and see. You could see that the item have been shifted basically to the left side. And there is another last one thing that I want you guys to take into consideration, and which is the justify content issue. Because with regard to this one, we'll be using it in our further tutorial. So we are going to implement the last justify, which is known as justify space between. And let's open our code browser. Let's open our code editor and let's implement that one. So we just type justify content, and the name should be space dash between. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now see how the box is being at the left side. The moment we refresh it, let's see what happened when we refresh it. You could see that the cube have been displayed evenly to the screen. More or less, it has been spread out to the horizontal axis of the screen. So basically, what this space between does, it picks the whole horizontal of your screen and now display the item evenly, or should I say display the item in terms of since it's a 3 cube item, it will now divide the space of the screen to 3 types by putting one at the right, putting one at the left, and putting one at the center. So basically, even if you implement a third cube to this, if you implement even a third cube, a fourth cube in this browser, you will see that it will display the cube evenly on the screen. So basically, that's what justify content space in between does. Hello, in this tutorial, we are going to develop this website with the knowledge that we have acquired in CSS and HTML. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Let's open our coder. You could see that we have our index.html file here, and we have our we have our star.css file here. So when we open our folder, you could see that our index.html file is here, our index.html file is here, and our star sheet file is here, and we have this image. Now let me open the image. You could see that it's an image of the phone. So let's just jump right into coding. So when we open our HTML tag, we need to introduce the HTML tag, but for the sake of professionalism, we are going to be using shortcut in creating this HTML tag template. All you just have to do is type HTML. You should see that there is a list of things being displayed here. We have HTML, and we have HTML, then then colon, then 5. We are going to select the colon, then 5. So it will generate this template for us. You could see that when it generates this template for us, let's do a little bit cleaner for you to understand. Let's remove the meta tag, the to meta tag. Okay, let's leave the to meta tag. So all we just have to do is, let me align things very well so that you could get the understanding really well. You could see that when you double click on our HTML tag, you see that our HTML tag is here, and you could see the head. That's our head tag, and also you could see the body tag. So basically, that's our HTML tag that we have introduced you to. And the first one, we start with the less than, then the high, the exclamation tag dot, the exclamation tag that continue with doc type HTML. It's basically telling us that this file is an HTML file. So basically that's what this one is referring to. Then when we move down, you could see that we have lang, L-A-N-G, that equals to E-N. It's basically saying that it's in English. And we'll leave the first meta tag for now. Then let's move to the second meta tag, which is the view and also the content. Let's leave the two meta tag for now. But what we need to concentrate now is the title. So we have already talked about the title. The title is basically what will be displayed here. So we need to change the title. Now let's change the title to the name that we want. Let's give it a name of free. Let's give it a name of Flex Academy. Okay, let's give it a name of Flex Flex then cap Academy. Now when we save and open our browser, now let's refresh it. You could see that the index.html will change. It has not changed into Flex Academy. Now let's jump right into our coding. When we look at this browser really well, we could see that we have this topmost part. So we are going to deal with this topmost part. Well, all you could see that the topmost part, which I have highlighted, is basically known as the navigation bar. So all we just have to do, you could see that they have grouped item into two sects. One is at the left side, and about 3 elements is at the right side. So basically that's what we are going to do. So 1 here and 3 elements here, or should I say this is one group and this is another group. So let's jump right into it. So let's go to our body tag. The body tag, that's what will display on our screen. Let's implement our div tag. So less than or greater than div. Then less than or greater than div. So basically this div, then slash div. That's slash then div. So that's the opening and closing tag of our. So now let's give this div a class name. So let's give it a class is equal to, then give it a name of nav then bar. So that's basically giving the class name of we have given the class name as navbar. So now what we need to do is implement the two group. The first one, which is the Flex Academy, and the second one is this one, the whole of this one, which is the second one. So let's implement it. So we need to implement two div. So first div, let's close our first div. Okay, slash div. Now let's open another div. So div, then now let's close it up. So then slash div. Now with regards to this is our first div and our second div, which is in the navigation bar class. So what we have to do is give our two div name. So let me give it a class name of equals to let me give it a class name of left. Then let me give the second div tag class name of right. Okay. So now what I'm basically, now let me save this file. What I'm basically doing is that I'm specifying the first div, which represent the Flex Academy, as left, and I'm representing the second part of the group as right. So now let's open our code editor. Now what we need to do is I'm going to type here, let me give it a header. Okay, h1. Okay, no, less than or greater than, then h1, then okay, less than or greater than, then slash h1. I've closed it out. Let me give it the name as suggested, Flex, then Academy. Now with regards to the second the second group, let me just give it a header tag. Okay, that one, let me give it an h1. Okay, open tag. Now let me close it up, and then slash h1. Then let me give it a name of let me give it a name of let me just type right. Okay, now let me save it. Now let's open our browser. Now here is it. Let's move to the browser. This is our file. Now let's refresh it. You could see that both have been aligned on top of each other. Now let me zoom out a little bit, okay, for you guys to see it better. You could see that it's been aligned on this on the next line. So the Flex is on one line, and the Flex Academy is on one line, and the right is on another line. So now I need to align it on the same line. All we just have to do is implement certain by using CSS. So what we first have to do now is we need to link our CSS file, which is this one, to our to our HTML tag. So we come in between the head tag. Let's give it a space. Now let's call the link. So less than or greater than, then link. Then give it a space. Then we type rel, then equals to, then double quotation, then type style, then sheet. Then now we come out of the quotation, then type href. The href then equal to the name of our CSS, which is, we name is style, then .css. Now let's save it. Now when we refresh our browser, you could see that nothing have happened. So now let's open our code editor. Now let's call this nav class, because it's this nav div encompasses the right and left. You can see this nav div, it encompasses the left and the right div, or should I say it encompasses the div which has a name of left, and also a div which has a name of right. So in order for us to align these two elements on the straight line, we need to call this tag that will help us align these two on the straight line. So let's move to our CSS and call the class name, which is .nav then bar, then double curly braces. So all we just have to do is call the display property. Then we call a display, then colon and semicolon. And the display property should be flexed since we want it to be displayed on the same line. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that it has been displayed on the same line, but you can't see it clearly because since it has been displayed on the same line, you could see that Flex Academy ends here, then right continue. So all we just have to do is space it out. So in order for us to space it out, we need to implement another property which we already know, which is justify content. So we just type justify content, justify, okay, dash, then content, then colon, then semicolon. Then the justify content, since we want it to be in such a way that the Flex Academy will be here and the right will be here, we just have to call the justify content as space dash between. Now when we just save it, now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that our text have been moved here, our right have been moved here. So that's basically how to apply the flex and also how to implement the justify content. Now what we have to do now is let's give a space. You could say that this Flex Academy and the right Academy is totally at the extreme. So I want to let it be a little bit out of the stream. So all I just have to do is go to the same navbar. Since the navbar encompasses, then just give it a margin. Then let me give it a margin of 5 pixels. Now let me save it. Now let me open our bar, let me refresh it and see. You can see that, okay, you can't see it really well. Let's make it a margin of 20. Okay, 20. Now let's open our browser. After saving it, let's open our browser, let's refresh. You can see that it have moved from the edges. Now all we just have to do now is, now let's watch our browser. We have to implement home, about, service, profile, then contact. So with regards to that, you could see that this element are in the form of align on what? On the same axis. So I'll use the unorder list for this aspect. So all we just have to do is move to our HTML. Now let's delete this. Now let's implement our unorder list. So UL, sorry, it's not greater than, then UL. Then let's close it up. It's now greater than, then class, that's UL. Then we need to name the element, which is LI. So the opening tag of LI, then the closing tag of LI. So the first element, let it be on the same line. So the first element is home. Now the second list, let me copy and paste. The second list is about. Let me make it is what it, okay, it's in capital letters. So home in capital letters. The next element is about. So about, then space, then as, about us. The third element is service and profile. So the next element, now let's paste. The next one is what? Service. Now the next one is profile. Okay, no, it's portfolio. Okay, and the last one is contact. Last one is contact. So now let's save our file. Now let's open our browser. Now see what happened when we refresh it. You can see that our elements have been aligned on what? On a vertical axis. Now all we just have to do is we need to implement flex so that it will be aligned on the same line. But before that, you could see that it has the dot element around it. So without further ado, let's just first of all align it on on the same axis before we implement how to, or we think about how to move the doc. All you just have to do is call the class. So with regards to this, I'm going to call the class name in conjunction with the tag. So the class name is right here. The class name is right, and the conjunction tag is UL. So all I just have to do is come here. Now let me call the class name. The class name is right. So dot, then type right. Then the element that the tag we want to collect is U. So UL. That's the unordered list. Now let's open it. In between the unordered list, let's give it a display of flex. Since we want it to be on the same line, so flex. Now when we save it, now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that it has been on the same line, but it's being conjuncted together. So all we just have to do is let's give it a space out by giving it each and every element a margin of, like, let's say 10. So let's type a margin with regards to that. If you give it a margin here, it won't work, because all we did is just pick the whole of this, and each of this element, we just want it to be on the straight line. So in order for us to give each and every element its own property, so we just need to call the class name in conjunction with the tag name and the specific item, the list item. So all we just have to do here is, let's come down, let's call the class name again. So dot right, then unordered list. Now we need to call the specific item, which is the li, this one. So all we just have to do is then add the li, then double curly braces. So we are calling the class name, then the ul tag, and also the li tag. So first, basically, we are calling this class name and this, and we are calling each and every li in this ul element. So now let's give it a margin of let me give it a margin of 10 pixels. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that it have been spaced out nicely. But now let's remove the dot which is being put in front of each element. And for us to remove that dot, we need to come to here and specify a property called list style. Then all we need to specify in the list tag is make it none. So let's specify the list tag none. So basically it's to remove the list tag. So now when we save it and open our browser, now let's refresh it. You could see that our element with the dot item have been removed. So that's basically it for here. But if you look at the website really closely, you could see that our background color is not white. So first of all, we need to change our background color. And in order for us to change our background color, all we just have to know is let's move to our code editor. Now in order for us to make our background color that color, someone will say, let's use the body tag. Although we could use the body tag, but with regards to other browsers, when you use the body tag, it will make the whole website really black. It won't really make all the website the specific color that you want. So what I suggest is, all we just have to do is implement another tag that you need to be considerate, which is the hash. No, which is the star. So I just have to type star, but let me do it. Let me put that one at the topmost part of my style sheet. So I'll just have to type star, then double curly braces. All this thing actually means it should select the whole web page. So it's not mainly only the border aspect, but you should select the whole web page. So the web page browser, you should select whether it's a Google Chrome or extension. Well, now what we want to do is give it a background dash color colon then semicolon, a background color of the color you want. But for the sake of this tutorial, I've already put together the colors I'll be using in the text editor. So let me open it up and let me copy this color. Now let me paste it here. So basically we are trying to say that it will give it a background color of this. But look out really well. We use the RGB color combination instead of just specifying red, yellow, and green. Basically use the RGB channel. So basically that's how to implement the RGB channel in CSS. So now you just type the RGB, then you just specify red, green, and blue. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our website browser have turned into the specific color that we gave it, which is this ash color. Now the next thing that we need to take into consideration is that we need to change the text to white, because you could see that this our text is white in color. So all we just have to do is go there again and type color, then dash color, then colon, then semicolon, then type white. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that our text have changed in color. So now let's look at what we have here. You can see that anytime we put our mouse cursor on it, it increase in size and also change in what? In color. So that's what I want us to implement now. Now let's open our browser. Now all we just have to do is we need to target each and every element so that when we put our mouse pointer on it, it will change the size and also the color. So all we just have to do is call the class name, then the UL tag, then the LI tag. So now let's come here. Now all we just have to do is call the class name. So the class name is right, then UL, then LI, then double quotation, then type hover, then here, sorry, we specify, we type double colon, then afterwards, after the LI, we type double colon, then hover over. Then afterwards, we type whatever property we want to give it. So we want, anytime the mouse is being put on it, we want the color of the text to change. So we just type color, then colon and semicolon. Now I specified the color that I want to use. So that's basically it. So let me copy the RGB channel. Now move here. Now let me paste it here. Afterwards, I want the text to increase in size. So all I just have to do is type font size. I have to change the font size. So let me change the font size to let me give it a font size of 35. Let me see, 35 pixels. Now let me save it. Now let me open our browser. Now let's open it. Now let's refresh it. You can see that nothing changed, but see what happened when we send our mouse cursor on it. You could see that our text have changed in size and the colors too have changed, but it seems the 35 is really big. So let me change it to something like 20. Okay. Now let's open it. Okay, I do not save the file. Okay, save the file. Okay, let me make the font size 10 pixels rather. Let's save the font size. Now, so we have to refresh the browser. To refresh the browser, okay, the 20 was okay. Okay, 20 was okay. Now let's save it. Now open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that it will increase in size and the color will change. But if you look at it really clearly, you can see that our text here is really bold. So we need to implement the bold to our text. So all we just have to do is let's open our code editor and go to our specific LI. Then specify font dash, then font that weight, okay, font dash weight, then type bold. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our text have changed into bold. So basically, this is how to implement our navbar. So let's move on to the next element that we need to take into consideration, which is this and also this. You could see that this have been divided into two. So in order for us to achieve this kind of look, first of all, we need to create two div elements. One which is this one, and another one which is this one. So basically, like we did for the navbar. So now let's move to our code editor. Now let's open our HTML. Now let's implement that tag. So let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, a little bit. So now let me go out of the div element of the navbar, implement another div tag. So div, that's the opening tag, then the div tag, then let's close it up, then /div. Now we need to specify the two sided thing, since we have one, this is one div and this is another div. So let's open our code editor. So let's specify the two div. So the opening div, then /div. So this is for the left side, which is the text, and this one is for the right. So div, and now let's close it up. So /div. So sorry, /div. Div. I feel like I've messed up something. Okay, the first div. Okay, this the opening div. Sorry, I messed up the open div. So this is the open div and this is the closing div. So all we just have to do right now is for us to get the understanding really carefully. I'm just going to give this div tag a class name of content or context. Okay, then give our first div, our div, which we did give our div that encompasses the two divs. So this div is encompasses these divs. So we have to give the two div a different name. So let's give this div a class name of content dash. Let me give it a content underscore left. And the second div, let me give it a class name of context underscore right. So now let me just type here right and type here left. So basically we made a big one div which encompasses this one and this one, and we just type right and left. Sorry, this should be left and the second one should be the right. Now let me save it. Now let me open my browser. Now let's refresh our browser and see. You could see that the text have been placed at the left side. So all we just have to do is align it on the same line. So we just have to call this class name which encompasses the two div in our CSS. So let's move to our CSS. Let's call the class name. The class name is content. So dot, then context, then double curly braces, then call the display property, display colon, then semicolon, then give it a display of flex. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see that it's on the same line, but we don't want it on the same line. We need to space it out evenly. So we'll add another property, which is the justify content. So justify dash content, then type space dash between. Now when we save it and now open our browser and refresh, you could see that it have been spaced out. You could see that we need to give it space because we won't want it at the stream head. We need to give it space. So all we just have to do is we can give it a margin. So let me give it a margin. A margin of, let's see, let me give it a margin of 30 pixels. Now let me close with this semicolon. Now let me save it. Now let me open my browser. When we refresh it, we could see that it have moved a little bit closer. Now let's check our website. You could see that one is an image and one is what? A text. So you could see that the right side will be the image. So let's move to the right side and implement it first. So let's open our HTML. Now change this right to the image tag. So let's go greater than then img, then you close it up. All you just have to do here is specify the source of the image. So src then equals to what's the name of the image that I want to display. The name of the image is home, and it's a PNG file. So all you just have to do here is specify the name, which is home, then .png file. Now let's save it. Now let's head to our browser. Let's refresh it. You could see that our image have been displayed, but it's really huge. Now let's specify the height and width of that image. So all I just have to do is go to the CSS, type the name of the class. The name of the class was content right, context right. So we just come here dot then context underscore then right, then the tag was img, so then double curly braces, then type let me give it a weight of, let's give it a weight of 300. So weight 300 ps, then semicolon, then a height of what? A height of 700 pixels. So now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You could see that our image have changed inside, but it seems the height is really a little bit off. So let me reduce the height to, let's say, 600 pixels and see. Now let's refresh it. Okay, you can see that our image have been displayed. Okay, but our image is basically really to the extreme, but we'll work on that one. But let's focus on how to display this text on our screen. So you could see that with regards to this text, you could see that this one is white, this one is a different color, and this one is also white, and this, you could say this is a paragraph, and this is basically a button. So let's implement those in our HTML. So let's move to our HTML. Now let's implement this text here. But since we have this whole text and also this button, I'm going to divide them into two using the div tag again. So less than or greater than the div, which is for the topmost part. So div, and this one, let's give it a class name of it's called to give it a class name of, let me just type my name, Abdul. Okay, class name of Abdul. Then the second one, which will represent the button. So let's implement the second div for the button. So div, okay, then close it up. Then give it a class name of what? class name is equal to bottom. So let me now display our text, which is hello, my name, hello, myself, and all that. So let's implement it with the header tag. So less than or greater than. So with the header tag, so where's my cursor? Okay, here is it. Less than or greater than, then h1. Then let's close it up. Let's make it on the same line. So the first text is hi myself. Let me paste this here. Now let me copy this h1 and paste it 3 times. So the second text was my name, which is Abdulatif Isahaku. Now let's copy the text. Now let's change the second h1 to Abdulatif Isahaku. Then the last text, which is and a front-end developer. Now let's copy the text, Ctrl+C. Then now let's come here. Now let's paste it here. Now let's implement the last one, which is the paragraph tag. So less than or greater than, then P. Then let's close it up. Let's see the paragraph be on the same line. Now let's copy our paragraph text. Now let's paste it and see what happens. And now let's save our file and open our browser. Now when we refresh it, you could see that it has been aligned on the same line. Let me check my code. Okay, when we opened our div tag, we should have ended it with a slash to close it up. So basically that's the reason why it was like that. So it was supposed to be slash div instead of just normal div. So now let's save it. Now let's open it. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see that our image have been displayed here. So now what you need to do is change the text, this text, the Abdulatif, to a different color. So all we just have to do is call the class name, which is Abdul, then specify which of the each one tag you need to change, which is this one. So okay, if you do it that way, it won't work. So all we just have to do is okay, let's change the Abdul name to a different tag. Let's assume, let's make it h2 tag. Okay, let me make the Abdul an h2 tag. Now let's call the name and make the change. So go to CSS. The class name is .abdul. Then we are changing the h2 tag. So double curly braces. Now let's give it a color. Colon, semicolon. Let's just give it the RGB channel, this color. Now let's copy it. Now let's paste it. Now when we save it, now let's open the browser. When we refresh it, you will see that our h2 tag will change because our h1 tag is really bigger than our h2 tag. So let's refresh it and see. You could see that it have changed in what? In size, due to we changing it from h1 here, due to we changing it from h1 to h2. So that's basically the reason why it have changed in size. But we're able to achieve our color changing from white to the specific color that we want. So all we just have to do is we need to increase the font size of the h1. So let's go to the tag that we selected. Now let's give it a font size. Give it a font size of 20 pixels. Now let me save it. Now let me open my browser. Now let's refresh it and see. Oh, 20 pixels is really small. Since it's a header tag, let's make it 40. Let's refresh it and see. Okay, it's a little bit okay. Yeah, it's a little bit okay now. But you could see that things are not being aligned properly the way we want it. First of all, the image is not aligned properly, and also the text is really a really junk text. So what I want to do now is the div tag which encompasses this, I want to give it the height I want to give it a height and width. Now let's call this Abdo, the Abdo container, and give it a width, because looking at things on our web browser is not really aligned the way we want. So all we just have to do is move to our class. Now call move to our CSS. Now call the class name, which is dot Abdo double curly braces. Let's give it a width of 700 pixels. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. And you could see that the text have been aligned the way we want it, because if you look at the text was running here, but with regards to we giving it a width of 700 pixels, we are trying to say the whole container, which is the right container side, is supposed to be 700 pixels. And looking at things, it seems a little bit okay now for us, but our image is a little bit stretched out. So let me move to the image tag and give it a height of approximately 500 pixels and see. Now let's save it. Now let's refresh our browser. You can see that it have changed in what? In sizes. So now let's implement our bottom tab, our bottom. So which is basically this one that I'm talking about. Then yeah, this is basically this that I'm talking about. So let's move to our browser. The bottom should be implemented here. So with regards to this one, I'm going to use the link tag, so we can make, or so we will be able to achieve this kind of look. So implement, so less than or greater than, so A for the link tag, then let's close it up, so /A, then we'll give it href, but since we are not going to navigate to any page, let's just give it slash. Now what name was being displayed on the button? The name was download CV. So all you just have to do is type download, then space and CV. Now if we save it, now open our browser. Now let's go to now we refresh. You can see that it have been displayed. But with regards to this, you need to give it a background color and also a hover over effect. So first of all, you need to call the name of the tag, the class name, and also the tag. The class name is bottom, so dot, then type bottom, then open it, the double curly braces, then now give it a background color. Now let's copy the color that we used earlier on, which is the RGB color. So let's just copy it from here. Now let's paste it here. Then we need to give the text color. So color, then and color white. Now when you save it, now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that it gives us this look, but since that's not what we are looking for, we need to implement the label, the tag, because you call this class name. Since we did not implement the tag, that's why we had that. So let's move to, and after the typing the button, you give it a space, then type A, then now save it, which will basically select the specific link. So now you can see that it have been jumped and be surrounded by the download CV. All we just have to do is give it a padding inside, because we want the space should be inside. So give it a padding of, let's see, let me give it a padding of 20 pixels. Now let me save it. Now let me open my browser. Now let me refresh it. You could see that our bottom is being displayed this way. So now let's first of all, let's give it let me see. First of all, me increase the font size. So give it a font size of let's say 20 pixels. Let me see whether it should be better. And let's save it. Let's open it. You could see that it have increased in size. And let's make it bold also. So font dash then width of bold. Now let's see what happens. You could see that the text have been bold now. Now let's make the edges sharp instead of making it really. Let's make the edges curve instead of making it really a straight line. All we just have to do is border dash radius. Border radius. Let's give it a border radius of 20 pixels. 20 pixels. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You can see that it's kind of curved, but we have not been able to achieve what we want. So let's make it a border radius of 60. Okay, a 30. Now let's save it. Now you can see that our bottom comes to life, but all we just have to do is we have to give it a space between the paragraph and the bottom. So let's give it a margin. Let's give it a margin dash top. A margin top of let's see margin top of, let's see 20 pixels. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Let's see. Okay, basically we need to, let me check our code. Okay, let's specify the margin with regards to the container. So let's remove this margin, because let's add the margin to this container with the class name. So now let's highlight the bottom class. So it's supposed to be dot bottom, then double curly braces. Let's give it a margin. Margin dash top. Then let's give it a margin top of what, 20 pixels. Now let me save it. Now let's open our browser. Now let's refresh it. You will see that it have moved a little bit. So let's make it a margin top of let's see 60. Now let's save it. Now let's refresh it. You could see that it have really moved downwards a little bit, but you could see that it is being underlined. So to remove then the underline element, let's move to the border with the link tag and remove the underline. So we just type text that decoration. To text decoration, then make it none. So now let's save it. Open our bar. Now if you refresh it, you see that the underline word have been removed. So all what we need to do now is, now let's bring, because it's at the stream end of our pages. So in order for us to bring it really closer, let's consider our big div tag and now move it closer. So the div tag there encompasses our left and right context is this context class. So now let's move to our context class. We gave it a margin of 30. Now let's increase the margin to somewhere like 60. Now let's close it up. Now let me save it. Yeah. Now open our tag. Now let's refresh it and see. You could see that our element have really moved closely. But if the closeness is not enough for you, you can make the margin a margin of 70. Now let me see if it's really closer a little. Okay, you can see that it's really a little bit closer. So all that we need to now do is the hover over effect. So now let's move to our code again. You need to select our class name, which is the bottom tag and our id tag, and add the hover over effect to it. So all we just have to do is dash the class name is dash button, then we select the link tag, then semicolon, then the hover over effect, then double click base. All we just want to do now is, let's see our old our old website. So when you put our mount cursor on it, we could see that our background color turned white and our text color changed. So for now, let's move to our code editor. Now all we just have to do is call the background color here. Now copy our RGB color. RGB. No, with our background color should be white. So type our background color white. Now we want our text color to change. So all we just have to do is type color, then give it the RGB color channel, which is the blue or light blue. So now let's copy it and paste it here. So basically we are saying that anytime a mouse is hover over our button tag, it should change the text color to this color, which is the light blue, and change our background color to white. So basically this background color will change. This represent what I just explained earlier on, that the background color should change into white and our text color should change into this light blue. But if our mouse is no hover over it, you should maintain the background. You should maintain this property. So means the normal property is this, but anytime our mouse pointer is being hover over it, it needs to change into this color, which is having a color of the light blue and a background color of white. So basically now let's save our website, our code, and now open our browser. Now let's refresh it and see what happened. You could see that nothing has happened. Now when we send our mouse cursor over it, you could see that nothing happens. Let me check my code editor and find out something. You will see that our name was being spelled wrongly. So it was supposed to be Button. So that's bottom. Now let's save it. Now let's open our browser. Now when we refresh it, we see that nothing happened. But see what happened when we move our cursor. We could see that our text have changed in color. So we have come to our end of this tutorial. You could see that now when we put our mouse cursor over this, you see that the text have changed so as this, and you could see that anytime we try clicking on our download CV and we put our mouse cursor on it, you could see that the text have changed in color. So basically this is how to design a website using HTML and CSS.